Hi there, Kelsey Toner here from Be a Better Guide and the Online Tourism Academy. We're so excited to share a brand new interview series with you here today, Pivoting Online, Success Stories and Inspiration. We've had one of our Online Tourism Academy students, Miranda Peterson, who also runs her own successful hiking and yoga tour company down in Asheville, North Carolina, to kick things off by finding 7 innovative entrepreneurs who are finding tremendous success in serving their customers online. Through these interviews, we dive into the secret sauce behind the success that they're having, the practical advice that they would share for someone wanting to follow in their footsteps, and maybe some of the things that they would do differently. Stick around to the end to learn more about how we can help you create, launch, and sell your own online experiences, and we hope you enjoy.
In a nutshell, what is your business and how and when did you start?
My business is Avital Tours, and I started my company almost 10 years ago, about 9 years ago in San Francisco, and then we had expanded to LA and New York as well. And I started in San Francisco, my hometown, and then I had also gone to college in LA. I went to UCLA, so I expanded there probably a few years later, and then also only like a year or two ago had expanded to New York. So New York was our most recent city. I mean, it's my passion. I am also a certified sommelier, so I had gone into the food industry, but I was hanging out. My first tour that I led and hosted was in the Mission District in San Francisco, which was young, up and coming, hip. It was where all my friends and chefs were hanging out. So, and there weren't many people serving that neighborhood specifically in terms of food tourism. And so my passion, my excitement, and then my professional background actually led me into the food tourism.
Beginning of 2020, let's go back in time. What were kind of your goals pre-COVID?
Well, we were projecting a record year, given the rise of every other year previously, and we had also expanded to New York, so we were in 3 different cities. So it was going to be a very exciting year, lots of projects and partnerships, and obviously that has not happened. So late February, a lot of our business was always corporate team building and people entertaining clients. So being at the intersection of food, travel, and corporate, we were the first to go.
Yeah.
So we, in San Francisco, our tech companies started issuing work from home orders. And people weren't flying in to do their team building with their companies. So we saw a lot of cancellations just starting to happen. And then that's where we pivoted in early March. It was a crazy ride. We basically reinvented the company in 5 days.
Wow.
So in the span of a week, we tested, made a list of like all the possible places that we could pivot in all possible ways. No idea was too small at all for our company. Revenue's at 0. You guys are gonna lose at that point. So we made a list. Then we started just testing. We started going through different hypotheses, which was going to be a better business model. How could we leverage existing assets? How could we leverage clients? How could we leverage our guides and what we already had? And that's where we came up with our new company, which was we were doing virtual cooking classes and remote team building. So we started offering those, and then we started talking to customers. We put it out there. We put it on our website. We got it going. We started marketing it, and by talking to customers, that's where we were able to then add another product that customers were asking for. So I think it's really important to listen to what people want and what they're going to buy. I think speed is important, but I think obviously now speed isn't as important, because if you launch it a week later or 2 weeks later, it's not going to make a difference. Whereas in early March, it was very critical to our success and what we did. I think now more important is that you're just pushing things out and testing and experimenting and keeping an experimental mindset. So I would say that I think what you're talking about, flexibility, but I would say just experimental mindset is really the key to to being successful.
Do you think there's still space for more online experiences?
Well, I would say, yeah. I mean, obviously, as this has gone on longer and longer, more people are pivoting and there's more competition entering the space. For sure. And I think that's because, when we initially pivoted in early March, there wasn't, it felt like a specific time period. To me, it felt like a bridge to get back to in person. Whereas now, 6 months later, we're like, okay, clearly we're not going back in person for a while. So now we have to actually figure out something else. So I think there's a different mindset than when I originally started. It was literally just like, keep my business afloat for the next 2 months.
Yeah.
So it was a very short-term goal. Whereas I do feel like now virtual is here to stay. Virtual is not going anywhere. And I think that even when we get back to in-person, there's still going to be great virtual components to the experiences that we build. So I think they're a great complement to each other. Now I don't see one as a replacement for the other. I mean, obviously, the more that there's out there, the harder it is going to be to market. And you're also marketing to a global audience. So you have to find a niche within that, because you can't just say, my tour is for everybody. That's not possible. And it was never possible before.
Yeah.
And it made a lot of sense when people were traveling to a specific city. There was a specific audience that was going to that city. However, it's so broad now, you really have to dial in your marketing to be very specific to who you're targeting and the type of person and the right price point at which people are willing to buy your product. So I also think it's really important not to be discounting your product. I mean, it's important to understand the value of what it is that you're giving to the person who wants to buy it, right? Otherwise, you're giving it away for free. Great. But that doesn't mean that that's how people want to spend their time. And that's maybe not how they want to value that product. So I think that you have to sort of balance, where your place is in the market with what your clients and your future customers are looking for. Our target market is the same as before.
Nice.
So I think that's where I was mentioning when, you're thinking about like leveraging your existing assets, right?
Yeah.
Your existing assets is your customer base, right? If you've been in business for 10 years or even 5 years, you probably have a mailing list of people who love what you do. They know the quality of what you do. So for us, like, I started with my customer base, right? Like, here's my customer base, and how do I find a product that's going to fit them?
Yeah.
So if and also thinking about like, well, if they visited your city once, that doesn't necessarily mean that they are going to be visiting your city and want all the same content about the same city. Think about like, who are those people? What was your niche? Was it about the history? Was it about astronomy? What was the spirit and the style of your experience? Was it witty and quirky, or was it like for the historian? So I think about thinking about like who your persona is on your mailing list, not just that they visited your city. We were incorporating hands-on culinary experiences into our existing tours. So it wasn't as big of a stretch for us because we are, again, leveraging your existing assets. We had relationships with bartenders and chefs. I had led a cocktail tour in the past. I was taking my clients to make cocktails at a restaurant, right? And so then to take those bartenders and put them online making cocktails, it wasn't as large of a shift for us. So I imagine that people watching this video or people who are participating in the virtual the virtual tour industry are now trying to figure out like, okay, what's their niche? What is it that they did well? For us, we had those relationships, but they're in a specific niche. So that's really important to recognize that like virtual is not the same as in person. And I think that's what you're getting at, is that you cannot just take the same experience that you did in real life and just put it on virtual. Like,
exactly.
If I had to listen to another slideshow with like pictures and like, that's just not who I am, right? No. But like, I don't like to be talked at for 5 hours. And I like to be engaged and interested. And so how can you think about translating that great content that you have, but make it interesting and engaging in a totally new way on virtual? And I just don't think you can say like, okay, well, on my tour, I used to hold an iPad up in front of this place and show historical photos of it. Well, how do you then engage that instead of just like presenting a slideshow? And also thinking about virtual, is it important that it's recorded or if it's live? And I think the part that you're getting about for live experiences is the interaction. Why now and why is it unique? And that's because each person who comes on the experience is different and is going to add something new to the experience. So from an experience design standpoint, yeah, like would you need it to be live or recorded? And then thinking about the medium and distribution based on the type of content and the type of person that you're trying to reach.
That's key, I think, to success, is getting that interaction and making people feel welcome and included in the process. Because I mean, we all know YouTube, it's been around forever, and there's just like all kinds of free content out there. So that's
right.
And I think thinking about kind of what you're competing against, not just, other tours, but YouTube and I don't know, lynda.com and other tutorials and things like that.
I mean, I would say in hindsight, how long it's going to take, like what are some of the strategic moves to make, how much are you willing to lose, how much money are you willing to invest in this, right? What do your financials look like? I definitely didn't know how long it was going to go. I definitely saw it as a bridge, and I thought probably a month or two at that point. I think I wished I knew just more. I think I wish I had more customer data. I wish I had asked more clients what they wanted. I think
that's great. Yeah.
We could have even moved quicker than we did. I mean, we moved pretty quickly, but in terms of like product design, I wish that we had built better infrastructure early on and followed better processes, because it was literally felt like a complete sprint. And so we didn't take care. I feel like I could have taken care. You make sure to take care of your people and make sure that they're okay. I mean, we had employees early on who got COVID and were out and couldn't help us in our pivot, and so I think there's a lot of like could have, would have, should have.
Yeah.
But I feel pretty proud of the way that we reacted and were able to move forward. And I think that's really important what you brought up, which is it's still moving just as quickly now. So literally things that I built 2 months ago, like I've been doing this now for 6 months, but things that I built 2 months ago or a month ago are already outdated. Things are moving so quickly, like SEO terms, trends are moving incredibly quickly right now. You can't just say, hey, I'm building this product and this is what it's going to be for the next 3 months. Because, and that's different than when we built our tours. Like a tour would last multiple seasons.
Yeah.
It wasn't going to get outdated. The history wasn't going to change. Whereas now customer buying preferences are evolving way quicker. So you can't just launch a product right now, even in the virtual space, and then just say, hey, this is what my virtual product is going to be.
Like everything's just faster paced. Like the pace hasn't slowed down since you started. You got to keep going with it.
Yeah. But so like a really great example of this is a joke that I might have incorporated into a tour 5 months ago about quarantine is no longer funny.
No, absolutely.
Right? And so that is just like a great example of how preferences and tastes and wording and methodologies, like everything is changing because trends and even the word quarantine, right? Quarantine versus social distancing versus, is this a pandemic era or is this a shelter in place? Like the words change. And so you have to be up on that, right? And the other thing is that 6 months ago, we had to incorporate into our experiences, like, hey, here's how to use Zoom. Here's the housekeeping. Now that's not the best use of people's time because most people know how to use Zoom. So how do you make those jokes, or how do you incorporate the experience design elements that you need to make a successful experience? And that experience is constantly changing as new features or new ways or creativity is coming to light.
I mean, I know there's a variety of people with a variety of comfort levels with technology. I'm sure it's like, they're an expert in bartending or cooking and not an expert in technology, maybe necessarily. Was there anybody that was like, no, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this online, or yeah?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we took our whole guide team, across San Francisco, LA, and New York, and they're hosting with us experiences. And some are not able to make the transition into the technology, nor was that their passion, right? So it's definitely important to recognize that it's not all a translatable type of skill set to go from in-person into virtual. And you have to think about your public speaking style. You have to think about the energy. You have to think about the way that you're presenting yourself. What's your background? How reliable is your internet? So, I mean, unfortunately, like some hosts didn't have the internet setup that we were able to work with. So you have to think about, okay, well, how can I empower them to be able to do their job? Or me, you know, if you're a solopreneur, how can I adapt to this the best, and what tools do I need to make this successful? So yeah, it's not everything is translatable. From in-person to virtual, and you have to understand what is and what isn't and what works for your customer base.
Yeah, absolutely. And so did you have to post and kind of hire and recruit new people, or okay.
Yeah. So some people were able to make the transition and some were not. In which case we were able to hire additional people. And it's incredible. We now have more people as part of the company who are great, fit our core values, and don't live in San Francisco, LA, or New York, because it's a virtual world. So we weren't geographically constrained in terms of hiring.
Cool. So you've hired people outside of those 3 cities. So it's basically expand. You know, you were able to expand faster and more online than you would be able to, you know, offline.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, you can reach a wider audience base. Everybody has personal decisions to be making. And also for us, it's a matter of like time and resources, and where do I want to put that energy? And virtual right now is the place where we have chosen to invest. We definitely will be going back to in-person, and we still are getting leads and inquiries of people who want to be in person, but ways in which they're interacting with the pandemic is very different in different parts of the country and different parts of the world. And you have to respect those other people's views. And, you know, and so some people will be operating and some people won't be operating. Some are just going based on whether they have business or not, and they don't actually have the choice to be able to make that. I do have the opportunity right now to be making that choice. So we are not currently operating in person. Yeah, it's incredible. We've actually been able to reach an audience that we hadn't been able to reach before, which is really incredible. And create relationships, and people saying, oh, I never knew about your company, but when we go back to in person, like, we'll continue to use you because we're having such a good experience on virtual. So again, just like, for me, everything that we do, it focuses on quality. I want to build an amazing experience for my guests, whether it's in person or virtual. And if you have that level of that standard that you expect from your employees and your company of quality, whatever you do is going to be amazing. And so when people find that company or that team that they want to work with, they'll be able to translate from both in person and virtual. And I think that they do have synergies together for sure. So yeah, I mean, for us, we're able to expand our customer base in cities that we're not currently, that are not San Francisco, LA, or New York, right? We have clients or people who were maybe based in those cities but have moved during this time, or we're seeing lots of people leave the cities and go to other places wherever they might to work from. So I think it's important to stay in touch with your customers right now, even if you're not operating. That's the other part, is just that even if you're not operating in person and you're not doing virtual, but you plan on going back to in person, stay in touch with them. Like, let them know what you're doing, or like understand what their needs are or how they're doing. And I think that you just want to stay top of mind so that when you do get back to in person, or when you do have a virtual offering, even if it's not now, you're connecting with people. And that's really what I see as our goal, our jobs right now as tour operators, is connecting people. My mission statement as a company is to deepen human connection through storytelling and food. And that was pre-pandemic, and it's still relevant in the pandemic, right?
Even more relevant, I would say.
It's more relevant. It's still much more relevant. It's like, if my job was to deepen connection through storytelling and food, God, like, what more do we need right now? We need to connect to people. And that's why, I made the choice for our products to be live and interactive because of that human connection, because that was part of our mission statement. But for other people in other companies, that might not be their mission statement. It was much more about, other missions that drove them. But how do you then take that mission and translate it into your, your new product in a sense and connecting?
What advice would you offer someone who's wanting to get into this industry for the first time and is maybe starting with online?
One of my favorite, most cliche quotes, which I'm sure all of you have heard, is an entrepreneur jumps off a cliff and builds the plane on the way down.
I've never heard that. I love it.
I love this quote because it shows to me that you have to move forward. If you're paralyzed standing on the edge of the cliff, you're not going to push out a product. You're not going to be able to even try to figure it out. And yeah, you might crash at the bottom, right? As many entrepreneurs do. But the point is that you jumped. And so I like to think about it as, if you're pondering starting a virtual business, really think about why and what your goal is with starting that virtual business, or why are you going to shift? Is this a medium that you're really interested in? Or what is it that people loved about your tour before? And I like to think about right now, tours are entertainment. People are really looking for ways to both connect and be engaged and understand what's happening in the world, that they might be in their own little bubble. And it's really important to try something new. So again, I would go back to the experimental mindset, going back to that experimental mindset that you got to jump off that cliff, even if you're a solo person. You might not be jumping off with other people.
Yeah.
You might be jumping off by yourself. So it might actually be easier or harder, right? If you're jumping off by yourself, you're incredibly nimble. You can adapt and you're flexible and you have nobody else that you have to roll something out to. You can just try, the next time you have a client, try something new. Nobody's going to know what it was like before. Or if you're a bigger company, understanding that, hey, you might have more marketing reach. You might have a little bit more financial ways to reach people. So I think there's advantages and disadvantages in both parts, but being by yourself or being with a team, either way, I think you're still well set up to be able to succeed.
You said that your revenues actually increased online versus offline, correct?
What's fascinating is that it's growing. Is that when you jump off that cliff, when you're trying something new, don't go for perfection. And so I think revenue follows when you are trying something new and people want to pay you for your offering, right? So find that compelling offering. And we happen to find the right product market fit for our particular audience. So it's definitely growing. Also, I think that the audience in the beginning tried to do it themselves and realized how hard it was. So that's the good news, is that you are a professional and you are an expert in your area. And people who say, yeah, I can do that myself. Yeah, totally. They absolutely can. But you're going to do it better than they can because you're a professional and you're an expert in this field. And you know how to build experiences. You know how to lead tours. You know how to host tours. So yeah, I think that, revenue is definitely growing when you have the right fit, and the more people that you have on the experience, it's a feedback, right? The more people, that means the more word of mouth, the more people that are going to have, so it's going to grow just naturally. Difference. But I used to host tours, I'd have a group of 350 people on a tour in person. So yes, we can still do 350 people virtually for sure. It's just a different feeling and different type of experience. So how do you think about, do you want to use breakout rooms? Do you want to have a lot of smaller experiences that then roll up into a larger experience? How do you serve different types of group sizes? But I think that's definitely much more of the advanced tour business than that's what I'm talking about. If you're a solopreneur, you're not running 10 simultaneous events. Whereas, we're a little bit on the other side, where we are running multiple simultaneous events with multiple hosts and multiple, bartenders and chefs at the same time. But that's because, all driven by demand.
Yeah.
an algorithm
Absolutely.
by what your market. But our clients wanted something different
Mm-hmm.
6 months ago than they want now, right? And so there's a big difference. And again, so yes, we actually are shifting back
Yeah.
into using the breakout rooms, or we're using them in creative and different ways,
Uh-huh.
and not just thinking about like this is a breakout room.
Yeah.
It's not static, right? How do you think about what are the goals and what are the needs,
Yeah.
and which parts of the technology serve those needs.
So I think it's important to do online experiences yourself if you're thinking about creating one. And also one of the important things, which is so evident with you, is like the passion, just like the passion for your niche and like in your case, food and connecting with people, and just that should definitely lead. Like obviously you want to be profitable, you want to be successful, but just having that passion seems like the thing that will get you through the obstacles and get you through the transitions and kind of make it all worth it.
Yeah. And I mean, I love what I do. I'm
Mhm.
excited. I'm excited by business. I'm excited by building. I'm excited by food. I'm excited by the fact that I am supporting other people right now who may not have had jobs otherwise, right? I'm excited about the social aspect. There's so much to be excited about.
Mm-hmm.
But I will be honest with you, it is exhausting. It is tiring. It is a lot to be passionate all the time, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so you have to really understand pacing and how to, like, and not everything's going to be successful. Like, how do you not even just fail, but how do you make mistakes and get yourself back up? Like, I have heard no and rejection so many times. And that's a great quote. I think it's Winston Churchill who said, I can't remember the exact quote, but he said, life is about, getting up and moving from failure to failure without the loss of enthusiasm. And so to me, it's like, yes, I'm going from failure to failure to failure. And I can tell you so many stories about places that we missed the mark or clients who were not happy over the last 6 months. But, I choose to focus on being able to grow and learn from those mistakes, and then letting my clients know, hey, I'm sorry, I messed up. That was not my best. Or you know what? Hey, we tried something new and it clearly didn't work. Let me talk about how we can fix it for you. And that's so important. But you're right. It's the passion for what you do that's going to drive your energy and being able to sustain that energy in this type of moment when you really do, you do need that motivation. I can't tell people like, hey, go put a tour online and it'll all work itself out. You have to be working at it. You have to be driving towards something and have some sort of strategy or way to get it out there, that people want to listen to it. Because as you mentioned, there's so many videos on YouTube. There is so much content out there. How are you going to differentiate your content?
But at the same time, there's more opportunity than ever, right? There's, as more things are online, there's less barriers to entry. You can set up something online and download Zoom, and it's a lot less costly than to start a business, maybe even 10 years ago, like in person. And, I'll give you a minute or two. Anything else you want to say to wrap up? Or
have fun.
Yeah.
This is your the choices in your life right now. Whichever way you choose, like make sure you're having a good time.
Yeah, I think that's so important, especially this year, because like if you're having a good time, then like your guests are going to have a good time, your team's going to have a good time. It kind of all starts with you.
Hey again, and thanks for listening to this interview. If it's inspired you to create and launch your own online tours or experiences, we want you to know that we're here to help. Virtual Tour Business is an online coaching program that covers everything you need to know about creating, launching, and selling an online experience or an online tour. It's there for innovative tour business owners looking to generate revenue, looking to leverage your existing skills to serve customers in brand new ways, and for those who are looking for purpose-driven work in these times of uncertainty. We're here to help you skip the tech headaches and overwhelm and give you the tools, tactics, and strategies that are actually working in this space. To learn more, you can visit onlinetourismacademy.com to get started today, or join us for one of our free workshops at beabetterguide.com, where we'll give you even more inspiration, tools, techniques, and practical advice on this topic. Thanks so much for tuning in, and if you did enjoy this series, feel free to share with a friend or colleague. We'll see you next time.